Tonight, we unearth a piece of resistance in the Lego Movie.
Russell Crowe battens down the hatches for the mother of all storms in Noah.
And Chris Evans takes the fight to the home front in Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Good evening.
Hello.
Also tonight, there's bigger, bloodier, bone-crunching action in the sequel, The Raid 2.
And this week's classic is the 1953 Western Shane. But I think we've got to start off with Captain America.
Well, Steve Rogers, alias Captain America, played by Chris Evans, and a team including Natasha Romanoff, Scarlett Johansson, are assigned to rescue hostages taken by French pirates aboard a S.H.I.E.L.D. ship. After a successful mission, Rogers learns from S.H.I.E.L.D. boss Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson, that Project Insight is about to be launched. This involves 3 huge satellites powered with Stark engines and equipped with dozens of long-range precision guns, targeting the world's perceived threats, something Rogers sees as representing fear, not freedom. Soon after meeting with S.H.I.E.L.D. Secretary Alexander Pierce, Robert Redford, Fury is attacked.
Busy in there?
Nothing some earmarks can't fix.
I'm here to ask a favor. I want you to call for a vote. Project Insight has to be delayed.
Nick, it's not a favor, that's a subcommittee hearing, a long one.
Could be nothing, probably is nothing. I just need time to make sure it's nothing.
Fine. But you gotta get Iron Man to stop by my niece's birthday party.
Thank you, sir.
And not just a flyby. He's gotta mingle.
Fans of Marvel Comics heroes like Captain America are pretty well served these days, as lavish movies based on the characters are released on a regular basis. This new Captain America outing involves an evil organization, Hydra, that has been established within S.H.I.E.L.D., and an implacable assassin known as the Winter Soldier, Sebastian Stan. There's a great deal of lavish action of the usual sort, with explosions, gun battles, hand-to-hand combat and the like, taking place against a backdrop of the expectedly skillful visual effects. The actors aren't given much opportunity in this sort of film, though Samuel L. Jackson and Robert Redford both do their best to create interesting characters. And Anthony Mackie impresses as Roger's friend Wilson, who turns into the Falcon when the occasion demands. Anthony and Joe Russo were the directors, and they stick pretty closely to the tried and true formula. Visually impressive, but hardly original by now. Margaret.
Yeah, but what a ride. I mean, it's sort of like it is a real popcorn movie, and I think on that level it succeeds. I think, you see, I think Redford and Samuel L. Jackson are fine, but I think Scarlett Johansson's pretty good in this too, and I think Chris Evans has a charismatic presence on screen. I never understand, the plots that are going on behind everything, and I'm sure if you pick them to pieces, they mightn't stand up to logic, but I don't really care because you're not given time to query very much. It's just a fun ride.
And of course, there's a tremendous fan base for this sort of thing.
And we now have not just, adapted from Marvel Comics. It's Marvel Studios now that is producing these things.
Right. And they're all sort of referencing each other too, as we saw in that clip. Yeah.
Look, I'm giving this 3.5 stars. I had a good time with it.
But there's nothing new for me, so I'm giving it 3.
Do we have a 20 on the shooter?
Tell him I'm in pursuit.
Can't stand those height things. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, opens nationally this week. Well, we seem to be delving into mythical and ancient times in the cinema lately, what with Pompeii and 300, Rise of an Empire. And now comes Noah, co-written and directed by Darren Aronofsky. with Russell Crowe as the biblical father of all people. Noah is living a subsistence existence with his wife Naameh, Jennifer Connelly, and his 3 sons when he gets intimations from God of a future catastrophe. After visiting his grandfather, Methuselah, Anthony Hopkins, he's sure that mankind is facing a devastating flood and sets about building a giant ark with sons Shem, Douglas Booth, Ham, Logan Lerman, and Japheth, Leo McHugh Carroll, and with considerable help from the Watchers, fallen angels who've been turned into giant stone creatures. Under siege from a descendant of Cain, Tubal Cain, Ray Winston, and the hordes from the east, Noah is determined that mankind is destined for obliteration and that even the progeny of Shem and Isla, Emma Watson, must not be allowed to carry on the human race.
No, we have all been judged. I have men at my back, and you stand alone and defy me? I'm not alone.
More a visual effect spectacle than an intricately plotted film. The characters are mere thumbnail sketches, although Russell Crowe brings amazing intensity to Noah. Even the visual effects are so obviously conjured on a computer that you experience them at a distance. This is a world of a vengeful God, and Noah is pretty obsessive about carrying out what he believes he's been called upon to do. The message is clear to us, the audience. We have inherited the earth, and it's up to us to take care of it and of one another. At nearly 2.5 hours, it's another film that tests one's patience. There are moments of tedium. Did you find?
Yes. It's interesting that the word God, I don't think, is used in the film at all. He's always referred to as the creator.
Yes.
But it's also interesting that I think the last time Noah was actually depicted on screen, he was played by John Huston in the 1966 film The Bible, and he played him a bit like Dr. Dolittle, you know, talking to the animals and so on. And the animals get pretty short shrift in this version because they sort of come in a couple of computer shots and immediately anaesthetised, and that's the last we basically see of them.
Yes, that's true.
Look, I think there's some very interesting things here. I think Darren Aronofsky is an interesting director. He makes films about obsessive characters, and this is another one. I think Russell Crowe is really good as Noah, and I think in the second half of the film, his dilemma and his role assumes more importance. But the thing that sunk this film for me were the Watchers, these insane stone things with fiery eyes that looked like they've wandered in from the set of Transformers.
Yes.
They're in the wrong movie. What is that all about?
It's very strange,
Yeah,
I must
crazy.
say.
Yeah.
You know, that imagination to say they belong in this space, in
Apparently
this frame.
they're inspired by some very oblique reference in the Bible to fallen angels who mated with humans or something like that, but you should have forgotten about them, I think.
Well, I may agree with you, but, you know, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's too long. It's 3 stars from me.
And 3 stars from me.
It begins.
Noah is currently screening around the country. Our next film is The Lego Movie. In the land of Lego, everything is tightly controlled by the all-powerful President Business, though an ancient prophecy predicts that a special will arrive one day to overturn the conformity imposed by the dictator. That special turns out to be Emmett, a construction worker who, when we first meet him, does everything in accordance with the instruction manual. As any Lego user will know, sticking to the manual isn't nearly as much fun as experimenting. And that's the theme the film explores, with Emmett proving to be the special who will save the land of Lego from the dreaded Craggle.
Playing dumb, Master Builder.
No, Master Builder.
Oh, so you've never heard of the prophecy?
No,
or the special?
No,
You're a liar.
We'll kill you.
Look, I watch a lot of cop shows on TV. Isn't there supposed to also be Isn't there supposed to be a good cop?
Oh, yes. But we're not done yet.
Hi, buddy. I'm your friendly neighborhood police officer. Would you like a glass of water?
Yeah, actually.
Too bad.
You could argue on the one hand that this film is an elaborate ad for children's construction toys, and I suppose it is, but it's a lot more than that. It sticks to the rules of Lego in its depiction of the way things are attached to one another, and yet it seems one of the freest and most inventive animated films in quite a while. This is partly thanks to directors Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who made Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, but equally, I think, due to those very talented people at the Australian company Animal Logic, whose creative and very cool ideas permeate the movie. The plot delightfully embraces all forms of popular culture, from Superman to Batman, Star Wars to Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. And there's a delicious coda that features Will Ferrell, but we won't reveal more about that. Emmett is given the voice of Chris Pratt, and other voices belong to Liam Neeson, Elizabeth Banks and Morgan Freeman. This is an original and delightful film, perhaps the best animated feature since the last Toy Story, though it's very, very different from that. Margaret.
It's lovely that there are so many Australian components in the creation of this.
Huge amount. I mean, it's virtually an Australian movie.
It's taking the world by storm, this movie, which is really, really lovely. Look, I think it's charming. For me, it's another animated feature, and truly, I wish I could embrace it.
I wish you could too.
There's something about.
Where's the inner child in you, Margaret? That's what we need to tease out.
I think the inner child got buried long ago, I'm afraid. But you know, there are sweet scenes in this. I like the message in it. I'm just not as besotted as everybody else seems to be with it. But I think kids are going to love it. I don't know
I'm
whether,
sure they will, yeah.
You know, I reacted against, you know, all those memories of picking up all those Lego pieces as a mother. 3.5 stars from me.
I'm going to give it 4.
Relax, everybody. I'm here.
Batman!
What's up, babe?
Babe!
What?
Oh, sorry, Batman. This is Emmett. Emmett, this is my boyfriend, Batman.
I'm Batman.
That's your boyfriend?
Hey, babe.
What?
Let's hold hands.
So, hey guys, I think we're about to crash into the sun.
Yeah, but it's gonna look really cool.
We were inspired by brick films, by the little tabletop animation stuff that kids were doing that you see like on YouTube and stuff like that. I mean, we had a choice to make something that was, you know, just a toy commercial, or make something that was earnest and heartfelt. And we said, you know, look at what these guys are doing with the film. They're making things as epic as they can possibly make it. There are these giant battle scenes and things like that, but they're rendered kind of like adorable because they're done with these minifigs and they're done with this very sort of like rudimentary, charming style. So that's the kind of thing we should be chasing. We should be chasing that from an aesthetic point of view.
Always use a turn signal. Park between the lines. Yes! Drop off dry cleaning before noon. Read the headlines. Don't forget to smile. Always root for the local sports team. Go sports team! Always return a compliment. Hey, you look nice. So do you.
Any filmmaker is always searching for something in the story that's going to be a universal, you know, truth that people are going to respond to, that anybody, no matter how old or young they are, is going to respond to. And so for us, it was that idea of what does it feel like to present an idea to people, to be judged by your peers or people that you want to, you know, a girl that you want to fall in love with, or a badass, you know, Batman that you want to earn his respect or something like that, or a team that you want to get to trust you. What's it like to expose yourself like that? What's it like from the scary side of things, and then what's it like when that actually starts to succeed, and then what can you become as a result of that?
Prove that you have the unlocked potential to be a master builder.
Whoa, are we inside my brain right now? It's big. I must be smart.
I'm not hearing a lot of activity here.
I don't think he's ever had an original thought in his life.
That's not true.
What about the Lego company themselves? Did they have any involvement?
We pushed them past their comfort zone as far as like ideas and things like that, designs and stuff like that. I mean, they were a really good partner. They and Warner Brothers, again, you know, with the fact that we were making fun of Green Lantern, we were making fun of things that are in there, you know, Dumbledore and Gandalf and things like that we were kind of calling some of those characters out. We always had conversations about it, but they really did support the filmmakers ultimately. They supported us making this movie because they knew that we weren't just poking a stick in the eye of Lego or Warner Brothers, these characters. They were actually doing it because we love those characters, and it's almost like your best friend where you kind of give him a hard time because of something that he's that he does. You just give him a little bit of a ribbing, that kind of thing. We treated all of our characters with love and respect, and I think they recognize that.
That was animation co-director Chris McKay talking about the Lego Movie, which opens nationally this week. The international success of the Indonesian production, The Raid, directed by Welshman Gareth Evans, has spawned The Raid 2, which may require a degree more attention to plot than the original, but then again, maybe not. Our intrepid, resourceful and kick-ass police officer Rama Uko Uwais is forced into a pseudo-jail sentence to infiltrate into one of Jakarta's major crime families, ingratiating himself with similarly incarcerated Uco, Arifin Putra. Scenes of martial arts abound. The plot thickens when the men are released. Uco, sick of his father's contempt for him as a leader, aligns himself with upcoming thug Bejo, Alex Abad, in an attempt to disenfranchise both his father and the other prevailing mob dynasty led by a Japanese Yakuza.
Betapa kagetnya mereka waktu mereka tahu saya jemput dan bawa kemari hanya untuk Anda. Ini hadiah saya. Sebuah kesempatan untuk balas dendam. Habis itu kita bicara bisnis.
This is really a genre film for people who relish extensive scenes and really unrealistic scenes of martial arts displayed in all their glory on the screen. Why do they wait for one to attack our hero? Why don't they just fall on him en masse and obliterate him? I can never figure that one out. However, this is very well directed by Gareth Evans. It is what it is, and it is very well done. For me, the fight scenes go on forever past their use-by date, and figuring out who is who takes most of the film time. But it is tense, it is charismatic in its own way, and while the original was quite an austere work at just over 1.5 hours, this enhancement at nearly 2.5 hours is maybe just a bit indulgent.
Very indulgent, I would say. I mean, I think if each fight scene was half the length, we might have had a 2-hour film, which might have been reasonable. Because I think Gareth Evans
I think people go to it for those scenes.
I'm sure they do, but I think Gareth Evans is a good filmmaker.
Yeah.
And I think maybe one day he'll make a really good film, because individual scenes, quite apart from the action scenes, are very well staged, very well directed. So I think the guy's got a lot of talent, and I don't, like you, I just felt the martial arts scene, well, every single scene actually goes on for longer than it really should. But I learned something from this film. I learned that it snows in Jakarta. I presume it's supposed to be Jakarta.
Yes.
I never knew that.
It's sort of like mirror. It's the movies, David.
It's the movies, absolutely.
But what interests me is that obviously after The Raid, you would think Gareth Evans would be, picked on by Hollywood and
I'm sure he will
whisked
be.
off.
I'm sure he will be.
But, he stayed to make this with the same actor. And you sort of feel there's a bit of loyalty to the country and loyalty to the people that helped him on the first one, which is a nice thing to see.
It is good. But I noticed that Sony Classics are distributing this worldwide. So I think he's got an in now.
Yes. Well, wait for the next one. Maybe Raid 3? Let's hope not.
No.
OK, I'm giving it 3.5 stars.
And me too, 3.5. The Raid 2 is currently screening. And now for this week's classic. I can never understand why some people who profess to love the movies claim not to like westerns. Perhaps they were subjected to a lot of bad ones once. The western is the most typical American genre, and they explain a great deal about that country and its pioneering days. There are directors who specialise in westerns, like John Ford and Bud Burtiker, and they made great ones. And there are great directors who made the occasional western, like Howard Hawks, William Wyler or Clint Eastwood. George Stevens made 3, but Annie Oakley and Giant aren't really westerns. The one that is Shane, which Stevens filmed on location in Jackson Hole, Wyoming in the summer of 1951, right after he finished A Place in the Sun. It's based on a short novel by Jack Schaefer, published in 1949, and the background is the conflict between the cattlemen and the homesteaders, squatters as they were called, a conflict that's been used in dozens of films, including Heaven's Gate. Van Heflin plays Starrett, a settler, married with a loving wife, Jean Arthur, and a small son, Brandon de Wilde. He and the other settlers are standing in the way of Riker, Emil Meyer, the local cattle baron, and Riker is pretty ruthless. And then a stranger emerges like a spirit out of the hills, a quiet man with a gun. His name is Shane, and he's played by Alan Ladd.
Howdy, Start. Expecting trouble? I don't want no trouble, Start. I came to inform you. I got that beef contract for the reservation.
Did it take this many of you to tell me that?
I mean business.
Then you tend to your own.
That's just what I'm doing. I'm telling you now, I'm gonna need all my range.
Now that you've won me, would you mind getting off my place?
Your place? You're gonna have to get out before the snow flies.
And supposing I don't?
You and the other squatters.
Homesteaders, you mean, don't you?
I could blast you out of here right now. You and the others.
Now, you listen to me. The time for gun blasting a man off of his own place is past. They're building a penitentiary right now to
Joe, that's enough.
take care of.
It's hard to believe now that Paramount was so uncertain that Shane would succeed in 1951 that they delayed its release for almost 2 years. George Stevens directed another film in the meantime. But when it finally emerged, it was an instant classic. Dare I say it, a western for people who don't always like westerns. The settings are real, the little farm near the mountain, the muddy town nearby with its livery stable and bar, and then there's the mystery of Shane himself. We never know anything about him, but we can guess. The music by Victor Young, the Oscar-winning photography by Loyal Griggs, and Jack Palance, Walter Jack Palance as he was named then, as the gunman brought in by the cattleman, and like Shane, a soft-spoken but utterly ruthless man in black. Good versus evil in a part of America that should be a paradise for all. No wonder audiences flocked to see Shane.
It's interesting, you know, how Americans have exploited their history, and this frontier of the West has, you know, just provided so much grist for movies. But I think what is interesting is that speech by Riker, the Emil Meyer character, who's claimed this land. They've been out there. I mean, it's almost a justification for him not wanting these people intruding into this free range for
and you can understand his point of view.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting, the character of, you know, Alan Ladd, Shane, coming in out of nowhere, this man who's obviously a gunslinger. I mean, they're his gunslinger clothes. He and Jack Palance are the yin and yang of one another, and who finds some sort of settlement with this family. It's...
And yet Shane's character is in many ways so mysterious that I mean, because we're never told really anything about him, we only have to guess his background, and he behaves in such a way almost deliberately to alienate people around him, and the way he sort of disappears back into the hills at the end where he
I don't think he alienates. I mean, that's the relationship with a kid is so
well, of course, with the kid and the family,
precious.
but I mean the others, yeah. So, look, it's a very dense and very, very beautiful film, I think. One of the most famous scenes in Shane is the confrontation between the stubborn settler, Stonewall Torrey, played by Elisha Cook Jr., and Jack Wilson, Riker's hired gunman, played by Jack Palance.
Tell me they called you Stonewall. Anything wrong with that? It's just funny. I guess they named a lot of that southern trash after old Stonewall.
What did they name you after? What do you know?
I'm saying that Stonewall Jackson was trash himself. Him and Lee and all the rest of them Rebs. You too.
It really is the black hat, white hat brigade.
Totally, it's a great scene.
It was wonderful seeing Shane again.
And that's the show for tonight. Good night from us.
Good night.